Dos Dre. Welcome back to another episode of Youth Assembly Platform, or YAP if you're fancy. My name is Betty Njeru.
And I'm Anthony Irari.
And today we're joined by
Chimwani Chitai, a farmer, and I work with a virtual production company called Cube Studio.
And my name is Wahu Tracy. I'm a communications and media graduate and a youth representative in Kikuyu.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much for making the time today. And we hope you who are watching us, that you stick around, because we promise to bring the heat in today's episode. Now, in our last episode, we asked the question of whether a first world Kenya is possible. I hope you guys actually had the chance to watch that.
Yeah.
And today we want to ask an even harder question, which is if everyone is building for themselves, for what must work for them personally or individually, who must build for what works for everyone? However, before we get into that conversation, Irari, you want to do us the honors?
Yes. Arsenal lost yesterday. Man United.
Arsenal has been losing every time. Hey, Arsenal, hey.
Being an Arsenal fan has to be like the most depressing thing in the world because... Why, Chim, let me ask you. You're a Liverpool fan, I think.
Yeah.
What is this losing mentality that Arsenal has? Like every time they're about to get it, they fumble.
No, but
What's that
they
about?
haven't quite fumbled yet. They're still favorites.
I know, but come on. They drew, then they lost yesterday.
I mean, they're top of the table. I know that.
They are, but anyway, it's sad that they lost and...
It's sad for us, especially. The
As
math.
Liverpool.
I
But
think
as
Tracy
Man
has always
United fans, today, in fact, we are supposed to be allowed to address the nation.
Oh.
Should give us time to address the nation. We need to.
Okay.
Yes, it's that serious.
You guys are on a come up, and it's very interesting to watch that. By the very good team. I think your coach is doing a good job. But anyway, away from Man United, let's start with this thing. And to start it off, I would like us to, like what Betty has said, last week we kind of delved deeper into this first world thing, and we want to continue with it this week. And I think the first thing we want to know, and I would like you, Chim, to address, when you think about first world, especially for you, what comes to mind? What is the everyday thing that you would consider as important in a first world country for yourself?
I'd say systems. If the systems operate the way they're supposed to, if the civil service operates the way it's supposed to, then everyone can find a place to plug in, get in where you fit in. Yeah, simply.
Tracy?
First world for me is a place that is rich, well developed. And again, the systems are working. Because if that works, everything else flows. Yeah.
Do you know what that looks like for me? I'm going to tell you something. Last week, I was going home from work and I ended up staying in commute for almost 3 hours. I hated myself for
I
it.
remember I was talking on the phone. I was like,
hated myself.
I was already home, showered.
Do you know, 3 hours? And it's 3 hours of doing nothing. You're just sitting, you're waiting for traffic to just, to move along. So for me, what I see is a country where I don't have to be in commute for so long. I don't have to be somewhere for so long in order to get to my next destination. Yeah.
And now, to bring that to context, I think we need to differentiate, like you said, how do we now get to a country where systems and all these things you guys have mentioned are working? So whose responsibility is it going to be? Is it you as a person? Is it our leaders? Is it our government? Now, Tracy, I think you mentioned that you're a youth leader in Kikuyu constituency, yeah? You just recently got elected.
Yeah.
What do you think leadership should do to get us to that place where systems are actually working?
Like you asked, the initial question you asked is, who do we think?
Whose responsibility is it?
I feel like everybody has a part to play.
Yep.
But as leadership, I think the things I'm putting myself in that space, there are things we need to fix for these other things to work, yeah? Like you said about the system, if the system is not working, that means whoever is receiving what we are giving is not actually getting it, to be really honest. So I feel like we need to fix our leadership in every other way for these other things to flow. If I've answered you, Irari.
Chim?
I would agree with what she's saying. I'd also add, at the end of the day, we each have our own responsibility, because it's not like leaders are plucked from, some tree somewhere. It's you who's going to be like, I want to vie because I have a vision for, how I can help my constituency or, your county. So at the end of the day, that responsibility lies with us. but it's also the leaders
Exactly.
who are in charge. You're like the heralds of the system.
Exactly.
So it's all hands on deck, really.
Betty?
Agreed. It's everyone's responsibility because we have to tune ourselves to believe into what a first world country is. Everyone has to be convinced. It's a conviction, for even it to get to the point of our leaders. We were saying in our last episode that our leaders are a reflection of us. Is that how the saying goes?
Yeah.
So I mean, if they're not doing the things we want them to do, obviously, that also speaks to ourselves, to what we believe in, to some of the things that we do ourselves, like I don't know, traffic offenses, things like that. So it's a collective effort, to be quite honest. Yeah.
So now, considering that, how now do we make that a national initiative where we've all said, we believe it's a collective. How do we set the stage now for us to make it a collective responsibility for us to move forward to a first world country? Where do we begin? Jim?
I'd say it starts first by, like Maslow's hierarchy. And I'm saying this because we were talking off camera a while back, and I was telling you guys about where I do my farming, which is in Kakamega. Deep in the heart of Kakamega. Ibakale.
Call that place
Remote
again.
part of
Say it.
Kakamega.
Ibakale. Deep. And you'll
Chief, I don't
find,
think they heard you.
but you'll find it's like in the heart of the village, right? It's guys who really, it's basic survival. Once you address that simple issue, then you can start to tell someone, okay, cool, now take your child to school. Basic survival being food. Once that's taken care of, now take your child to school. In school, now the child will be confronted with that reality of, we are working towards Singapore. But until we address poverty is the enemy, basically. It really is. Yeah.
Now, if you're going to do that, do you think as young people, we are willing to do what it takes to get us there? Like, for example, in China, they have something called the 996 rule, where
What's that?
people work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 6 days a week.
Yeah.
It started off in like a lot of tech companies in China, but it became like a national thing across. I'm wondering, are young people, or are we willing to work all that to get where?
I like that you brought up the Chinese example, because when you look at it, the first thing they did in terms of creation of jobs was they focused on industry. Well, let's say first they focused on, again, food, then industry, right? Because even if guys are employed in industry, whatever you're doing, if there's no real food security, then
What are you
it
doing?
doesn't matter if you have money, if you have nothing to spend it on, right? So it's actually a really good example that you brought up. Yeah.
And now, if that is the case, now, like I've asked Tracy and I asked you, Jim, again, are we willing to do that? Are young people willing to put in that effort for us to be able to? Because building is hard. I know we all want a good life, but the kind of fast world we want, it requires that there's some effort and there's a lot of commitment as people.
We all want to embrace the first world status. Yeah.
So are we willing to, or most young people willing to put in the work to get there? As a young
Answering from my youth point of view, I feel like we as youths tunapenda kwanza strong, assuming I'm a graduate. So the perspective I have in my head is, I want a white collar job. I want to walk into a media room, have my desk. If I'm going to edit, I edit, I finish, I go home. So I feel like we as youths are not ready for that discomfort for us to get to the comfort that we really want. So if what I'd go back to what Irari had asked, if we are able to know our responsibilities as youths in this entire
space that
this concept that you're trying to push, if we know our responsibility, I think, and we are able to, if we can, I don't think youths can, not most of them can, but we need to sacrifice the comfort that we have, and so that we can get, I tell myself it's short-term pain, long-term gain.
Oh.
Yes. So if I don't think youths youths are going to do that, I'm a bit...
Tracy, who should make youth aware of that responsibility? Is it themselves? Is it the leaders? Is it their peers? Is it their parents?
All of us, all of you, everyone.
So
I'm
the
a youth
whole community.
representative because I think who does like I can.
Like you can,
Yeah,
yeah.
the info that I have.
Of course.
Yeah, hawezi access. Social media that like I can.
Like you can,
Yeah,
yeah.
the info that I have.
Of course.
Yeah, hawezi access. So it is my responsibility as the youth representative to get it to them however I can. Number two, we have our parents. These things start from home. The basic information that the values we get from home, the things we do at home are the ones that actually give me an image of this concept that you're really trying to push. If at home we have someone to do all the work, trust you me, even when I come to the outside world, I'll expect somebody to do it for me. But if from home I am taught that I have responsibilities to do, so if outside here I'm given a responsibility, it is not going to be a big task for me.
Yeah. Shim, you agree?
Yeah, essentially, yes. What I'd ask is, okay, so young people are willing to leave Ivakale to come to Nairobi. You'll forgive me for saying this, to become watchmen. The drive is there,
Yeah.
but not for everyone, right? You will find
I can't believe you just said that, but okay.
facts are facts, bro. Like, facts are facts.
Facts are stubborn.
Facts are facts, bro. But you'll find not everyone is willing to make, like you're saying, the sacrifice, because also it's dependent on, I don't know if you'd say like the prestige or the position,
Okay.
right? Because like I said previously, you get in where you fit in. Not everyone is going to be able to be the CEO of whatever parastatal. Not everyone is going to be the engineer of, So are people willing to say, fine, maybe me feeding into this vision is me being the best watchman I can be. Oh my God, my cousins are going to tell me a new one. I'm not saying all lawyers are watchmen, but I mean, come on, guys. But you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
How many Kenyans are willing to say, you know what, I'm going to be, again, the example of watchman, but I'm going to be the best watchman I could possibly be.
Yeah.
And that, at the end of the day, feeds into the greater vision.
Okay.
I'll ask you this, Shim. Is it fair, actually, all of us, is it fair to expect young people to think nationally when the system mostly rewards personal hustle? And I'll give an example. I see a lot of people on social media, especially young people, complaining that once they graduate, it takes them years to find jobs, They're moving from organization to organization, knocking on doors every other day. Mind you, these are people with bachelors, some of them with masters even. But is it fair then that we ask them to think first world when they've not set a foundation for themselves? A working foundation.
When we talk about a working foundation, this is again where you'd have to clarify this for me.
Say, for example, doctors, people who've gone to school, they've been in school for 6 years, studying medicine. Lawyers have been in school for 4 years and another 2 years at KSL. That's another 6 years. Look at engineers. How many years do engineers spend in school, in university?
I think also 5-6 years.
Thereabout, yeah? So this is someone who's been in school for 6 good years. And after graduating, it's another 2-3 years of silence. This person is still, we like to use the word tamakin here in Kenya. They're still tamakin. They don't have jobs, Yet we expect them to build.
Okay, so the question of looking at it from a national perspective,
Okay.
I think that is something that, we have counties and all. So maybe it's not about looking at it from the national perspective, but understanding how you'd feed into, again, building that national vision from even a county level, right? So you will find a doctor will have graduated, and it's not that there are no jobs. You could get a job in Kakamega General, for example. I always go back home with my examples.
Yeah,
right?
it's okay.
You can get a job in Kakamega General, but you'll find people don't want to go to Kakamega General. Maybe because they don't feel it's prestigious. Maybe because they don't want let's be honest, it's not going to be as comfortable as being in Nairobi. Or even if we say somewhere far-flung like Wajir.
Or maybe they're not going to get the big chums at a remote hospital.
Yeah. That, honestly speaking, yes. So even when you talk about
It's
like a
the
hospital in
reality.
Wajir,
Yeah.
right? Someone wouldn't want to go there because, again, it's the money, right?
Yeah, it's the money.
Yeah. And it's about ultimately making it as prestigious as possible for someone to say, like what you see in China. Again, I love that example that you brought up because you'll find the Chinese are truly patriotic. A Chinese will be sent to a far-flung region, and as long as he understands or she understands that to her it's like, I'm feeding towards something greater.
Yes.
I'm
comfortable.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Tracy?
I think people incline towards incentives more than motivation, like more than the speeches and all that. So if today I found a doctor who's an influencer, me, I'd not blame them because the enemy is poverty. Honestly, there's no joy in suffering.
Yeah.
So if Mimi as a media person, I become an influencer tomorrow, Mimi ni mahali pesa iko. Yes, because why would exactly, why would I try to build something and those people who are there are doing not much about, and now me at my level, I'm forced
you're
to
expected
Then
to
doesn't that roll back to trust in the system ultimately? Because
Exactly.
like you know what you just asked, very important. Like I feel even if I were to do that, if I would sacrifice and say, you know what, I'm going to go machinani, do my part, I don't really trust that my part will even matter.
will make an impact.
Yeah. Maybe because honestly, this being Kenya, maybe because you feel like there's a politician who will take advantage of all my toil.
Yeah.
So I mean, let me chase the money.
Your example, quitting to be a doctor to become an influencer. I think
Yeah.
some of the, if I can name a number of the pillars that are supposed to get us to first world, based on maybe perhaps what the president has brought forth in regards to that. One of the things is, of course, agriculture. We need to make sure that you have food sustenance. Number two, I would bring about infrastructure. And there are two other pillars that were mentioned as part of it. Now, if I can talk about infrastructure, for example, if all of us, if all young people want to be the influencers, who's going to be building these structural infrastructure developments that we are supposed to take us to first world? What do we need to do to turn that wheel back? Because when things that are very important, that are key pillars in terms of development, are not as rewarding or as interesting as they should be, now what happens to our larger dream? Of course, we will not get there. So how do we start making careers like engineering, being a doctor, being a farmer, and not even just a farmer, but large-scale farming, manufacturing, for example. If it's agricultural manufacturing, we need to get there for us to be able to get first world. But if influencing is the most
It's
the most rewarding thing that everyone works and everyone wants to be part of, what happens to that? How do we now turn the wheel so that we can now those things start mattering, so that they matter, so that young people find interest in them, and we can move the country to where it needs to be? That would be my question. You can
I try and answer that question?
Yes.
I feel like first world countries overvalue these jobs that they're very essential, lakini they're not glamorous, but like for doctors, engineers in those first world countries, like they feel like it. They put in the work, and I feel like they're more appreciated. Like, I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes,
they are more appreciated in those areas more than here. So if I'm a doctor here, alafu the next thing I know to go in the streets, because I am demanding for something I should get, because I'm also sacrificing. You see, doctors are exposed to so many things when they're doing these things and all that. So if in those places, I think they have better working conditions, they are paid, hawachelewi kulipwa. And then now you come back here and you sit down and you realize, akiwalai mimi nijipate kwa hizo streets. You just fall back to this other side, to be really honest. Yeah.
Which before Chim comes in, which also reminds me of something else that we've seen happening in that space. A lot of young people in these careers that we considered big when growing up, they now want to work in those first world countries themselves. They don't want to work in Kenya anymore, So it's like Irari asks, is it a system failure? Is it an us problem? Where's the disconnect, guys? Where's the disconnect?
I think it's a personal problem. It's a structural problem.
Yeah.
Because also, like you were saying, you need to remember that Kenya produces nurses.
Yeah.
Those same nurses rather than deal with the way you're saying, going and eating tear gas on the streets, demanding their pay from 6-7 months back, would rather go to Australia or Canada.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Would rather go to any other country than hustle and toil here.
Yeah.
And we are all human beings. It's not like we'll act like we don't understand why that is, like, what the driving force behind it is I want not only to be appreciated, but for it financially make sense for me. Because let's not lie, a doctor should not have to be on the streets the same way. But I'm a dropout. Let me just be very clear. I'm a dropout. I was doing finance. I dropped on my 4th year. To my mother's
The last minute.
anger, must say it, my mother's anger. But the thing is, I shouldn't be in the same position as a doctor, in that I'm on the streets fighting for an opportunity to get a job, and a doctor is fighting to get paid. So that's a structural problem. It's a systematic. It's a systemic issue. Yeah.
So how do we go about fixing that structural problem?
Get them paid. Number one. Let's first, I keep saying, let's address the most promising.
There's the reason
human
why
need.
they're not getting paid.
There's no money.
There's a structure. You can say that there's no money, but why is there no money? There's a problem that has happened, that there's a reason why there's no money.
Okay.
So how do we solve that structural problem as young people? So even as a young person, where do you start in fixing that structural problem so that the money can be found?
So there are no easy answers, especially when it's a systemic problem, because it is very difficult for you to fix a system from the outside. So when we're talking to young people, one of the frustrations you'll find, like for example, during Mandamano, one of the frustrations guys will have was they're like, look, I have my degree. I can't get a job, right? The people who are in those positions are not leaving those positions. They're not resigning and creating new opportunities. It is easy to point at this guy and say, well, why don't, like the way I did earlier, why don't you think of moving to getting a job in the county? But you'll find even at the county level, by the way, for you to get a job, there's a county officer who's like, Mbemangondo, give me money first. I'm not willing to talk to you until it makes sense for me. And sometimes you'll find this guy has nothing to his name but his certificate, right? The systemic problem is not one that we can fix by saying, you young person, where do you feed into? I'm on the outside already. That one entirely has to come from...
The system is already rigged against you.
Exactly.
As
So
a
that
young
one
person.
entirely, the solution is now where, remember what we said? All hands on deck.
Yeah.
This is where now we look at the leaders. It's like, this is not where we're like, okay, look, I elected you to help me with this situation.
Yeah.
What are you doing about the situation? When it's been resolved is now when you can tell me, okay, cool, we've resolved the problem. Are you now willing to work? Those are my thoughts.
Tracy, as a leader,
Yeah.
perhaps you can speak as a leader on this.
I'll speak as a youth and as a leader as well. So having been in this space, I have a personal example. I know someone who graduated in 2018 with a degree in finance and banking, and he's still at home.
Oh, wow.
Till now.
That's almost...
So this person has sent CVs until he says...
That's almost
"Situmi
8 years
tena."
later.
Exactly. So I feel like one thing the leaders can do, especially in this system, let me look at the education system. What we can do, I think we have economic zones in Kenya, right?
Yes.
They can come to... Because to be really honest, I don't think most people are practicing what they did in school as per now. So if the government can give the youth this opportunity in this sense, I am the government, so I'll go to this, let's say, industry and ask them what skilled labor do you guys want. Then I'll go back to my community and then I'll say, this is the opportunity that we have. If you all can come, like we train these youths for these specific jobs, in such a way that when they finish this training and all that, they can be absorbed into, I feel like that would really reduce the rate of unemployment we have. Like we have skilled training based on the available jobs that are actually there. I think that is one thing that I think would really work for the youths. So sisomi nisome, sisomi because I was called to do communication. I am getting this skill so that I can go and earn money from it. Yeah.
If I could just come in to agree with what you guys are saying, also from some of our interactions online, someone by the name of I think Polo Kimani online here says, we just want a stable Kenya that accommodates us and our needs. And then he goes on and asks, who has said that we need to emulate the Mzungu for us to be civilized? So I think the common ground here, Hirari, is that there's a system failure that needs to be fixed. Yes. And young people want it to be fixed immediately.
Okay, even let's address that. Who says we have to emulate the Mzungu?
Yeah.
Look, when we define first world realities, there are certain parameters within which we define first world realities, right? One is the functioning system. We can all agree on that. Another is a certain, let's say, standard of living that comes from everyone being able to get out as much as they put in economically, right?
Yes.
But who set the ground for that? Like, guys, let's not just simply say don't look at the Mzungu. Like, if there's a good lesson to learn from someone, it makes sense. Look at the Chinese. Like, it makes sense to just copy what you're taking. You'll slap on a fancy Kiswahili name. Copy what you're copying. Keep it pushing.
True.
Like, honestly.
Now that you've brought that up, Chim, countries like, you keep on bringing up China. China, Singapore.
Singapore.
By the way, before I even ask you that, thank you, Moana, for that. That was, Mano is our co-host. He helps us kind of figure out some of the things, like the online thing that Betty has just done. Now, countries like China or Singapore made very unpopular decisions, like the
Benevolent dictatorship is an example.
So do you think that should be the way?
Let me first allow you on the hot seat, then I'll jump in.
Okay. So I feel like if we try that, I think for Kenya, we'll have to bring it in slowly. If we just do it,
Oh, really?
akiwalai watarudi streets. If we just wake up one day and decide, you know what, guys, this is a dictatorship, for lack of a better word, this is what you are using, this is what you guys are going to do, I'm telling you, they will go back. So I feel like we need to educate these guys as much as possible for them to understand that it's not actually the destination. You're not actually going to Singapore. We're just pushing the dream, the values that they have, the policies that they have. Tukishawa educate, and then we can now bring in these other things, pole. Otherwise, if you just do, we shall go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
I'd say, okay, so Kenyans are a very exposed, very largely
woke.
self-taught.
They're very woke.
I guess, yeah. Like very exposed, very,
Look at Speed when he was in the country, man. Like,
and then compare that to Nigeria, the way Nigerians. Again, I mean,
I can't believe
bro.
it happened the way that.
Yeah,
And then we're begging for food on the streets.
You guys don't want to
from
structure
a
Kenya
21-year-old,
versus
from a
Nigeria.
21-year-old, no, but my point was this, right? It'll be a very hard sell. Very, very hard sell. Because, look, let's actually have an honest conversation.
Okay.
If we say we are going to have a benevolent dictatorship, which actually is what Rwanda has. And if you've been to Rwanda, that system seems to be working for them, right? If you look at, again, Singapore with their history and how they developed, it was working for them. If you look at the GCC countries, essentially the Gulf countries, right? Essentially, it is a soft dictatorship, right? You have to look at the populace. So I'm saying that to say this. If you were to introduce that conversation in Kenya, they will ask you, I know I would. I'd ask, okay, let's look at the current crop of leaders that we would be looking at to help push us not only into that direction of benevolent dictatorship, but beyond there. And the truth is, just as it is, a lot are self-serving. A lot are. You have to now start asking yourself, okay, who would the president call upon to help drive this agenda? Because for you to actuate the benevolent dictatorship, the president would have to have a core team around him that is unimpeachable, like unassailable.
Yeah.
Who are those people?
Unpenetrable.
Off the top of your head, who are those people? Because what the president does, his job is like a CEO. He'll give us the vision, give us the direction, and then empower his advisors, right? To
Empower his
move
cabinet.
exactly,
Empower his
to
cabinet.
move in that direction. But when you look at, for example, X, and you look at some of the people who have attached their names to the presidency, and you see the way they talk on X, is that the kind of guy that you would want to give that unfettered power to? That is a very uncomfortable conversation
That's
we
a
need to
really
have.
good food for thought, Shim.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then when it comes to that, now that you've brought in that component, how do we now fix, if it's leadership, for example, if that's what it is, that how do we get young people to start looking at it from that uncomfortable space, that to get to first world is uncomfortable. Getting good leaders is also uncomfortable in the sense that how do we, even the people who want elective seats, why do they want elective seats? For example, when someone wants to be an MCA, why do they want to be an MCA? Is it because of the perks? Because ataweka gari siren, apite traffic Nairobi? Or is it because ataitwa mheshimiwa, atapitishwa kwa bank, kwa line? The incentives are wrong, in my opinion. So how do we adjust those incentives so that we have the right incentives, so that even when people are going for elective leadership, they go it for the right reasons and not for these other reasons that we know most people go for elective seats for?
Well, when it comes to the people who are getting into positions of power, chasing after leadership, that now falls on the people. We have to be a lot more discerning about who we are voting for. You understand? If someone is already an incumbent, look at his track record, look at her track record, figure out, is this the type of person that I want to entrust with the president's vision of taking us to Singapore, right? When it comes to, we said also the leaders have a role to play. I remember listening to someone who was talking and he explained, I believe it was Anyang Nyong'o's book, I could be wrong, but he said at the time Anyang Nyong'o had a conversation with the guy from Singapore, right? I'm sorry, I forget his name. He had a conversation and he asked, how were you able to build the way you built? And this guy was like, when you take an example of someone like, was it Tom Mboya, right? The Kenyan elite ended Tom Mboya's story. I embraced our Tom Mboya. It's like, if you have an idea where you're telling me you want me to be president, come into my team, right? Build from within my team. And that's something that we need to see more of from now the political class, where, you look at the president, some of his harshest critics.
Yeah.
We need to see him actually go across the aisle, embrace that critic and say, okay, cool. You've been talking a lot of you've been talking, my Lord, you've been talking a lot, right?
Yeah.
Come to my side of the aisle.
Yeah.
I will empower you
Yeah.
to make that a reality.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, I know for someone who didn't necessarily vote for the sitting president, I'd be more than happy to see him, number one, succeed. Because if the president succeeds with his vision for Singapore, we all succeed because we all get
the
better
citizenry
lives.
succeeds as
Right?
well.
But number two, to see him cross that aisle and approach, especially some of the more vocal opposition leaders from my community, right? Approach them and be like, okay, cool, you've been talking a lot. Fine. Come, I'll empower you. Take us there. Now, once that conversation happens, people can begin to trust that this Singapore machine, this train that we are boarding, isn't just for one or two communities.
It's for everyone.
Right? It's for everyone. Right? And I can trust that because his biggest hater is by his side. So I know his biggest hater will check him. Right? So now I can board that train. That's how I see it.
Like an accountability partner.
And once you do that, it's very easy to sell the youth hope.
I have a question for Tim just before we go on.
Yeah.
You've said we look at the leader, check their track record. These guys they come to us and then they tell us, oh, if I say this, the people of my constituency will know who I'm talking about, but it's a perfect example. So one person was campaigning and when he came campaigning in a donkey because of how guys, I'm from a humble background. But when these guys get into those seats, man, they change. You don't get to trust these people. They become totally different people. So I think from where we are sitting, we have that mentality. We'll give you that seat. Hatukatai.
Yeah.
But when you guys get to those seats, you become totally different people. So how do we move from that?
Okay, so for every one example such as that you've given, there are 10 examples of other incumbents who have just been utterly, ineffectual, right? So unfortunately, hakuna raisi. Like, look, I don't know what's going on.
Hakuna formula chim, even if unasema, basically.
I'm not a mind reader, right? All I can do is put my best foot forward, give it, proper college go and then be like, okay, cool. It didn't work. I'll see you at the ballots. And you move. And the problem is we get stuck at the I'll see you at the ballots. Because, like, guys, in my community, to my shame, constituency right near where my village is, guys were given soda and bread. Like, we are never beating, Luyas are never beating the stereotype that for Luyas it's about the stomach, you know. Like, to my shame, bro. Soda, number flow, like, my guy. So at the end of the day, in as much as we like to say,
Jimmy, you're mad, man.
no, but like we are never beating the allegations, bro. Every community has a stereotype about them. How are we going to beat the one that's about us if bread and you sell your vote for bread and soda, right? At the end of the day, you see how that points back to us, right? And a politician that has to resort to doing that is probably the incumbent or was adjacent their incumbent, meaning that they're so closely tied to the incumbent's regime that this is the only way they can get back in.
Yeah.
Look, guys, man, listen, eat that bread, drink that soda, but vote like you know your children depend on your vote.
Yeah.
Right? If you get hoodwinked, it happens. It happens the best of us.
Your future depends on it.
Yeah, but we all get hoodwinked, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
At the end of that 5 years, send him home on the same donkey he rode in on.
Home.
Ile donkey ya Yesu.
I'm sure you all know Morara Kibaso, isn't it? So Morara gave a very interesting concept about, let's say, being a governor. So he mentions you get in, you of course spend a lot of money campaigning because politics is damn expensive. So you get in, you're trying to figure out the systems. Then you find out. So you find out that you have a budget. So 75% of that budget goes into salaries and remuneration. Then 25% is what you're supposed to work with, especially for development. Then so you start wondering, okay, this is not enough, but where can I get more money? So you start, for
Looking
example,
for other sources of income.
like you start look at your systems, you see, okay, these salaries and remuneration, are they been done well? You find that you have 2,000 ghost workers from the two governors that were there before.
Yeah.
So you start saying, apana, sasa ghost workers lazima waende home. So the moment you start doing that, then watu wengine, maybe certain elders or certain people in the village or the community that you are in, come and tell you, ukifuta hao, sasa hata sisi hatutakusupport.
Yeah.
Na hautarudi kwa kiti tena. So you find, so now you're caught in a quagmire. So now what do I let these people stay, or do I change the systems? Because if I change the systems, then I lose political will. I may not get elected next time. So like you end up in this space for the next 5 years trying to figure out what it is that we need to do. And then 5 years is done. And then another person comes back, finds the same predicament. So is it also our problem as a people? And now for us as young people who are supposed to now take us to the next step, how do we fix that quagmire? So that even when we are the makers of our own choices, where you find we are enabling this kind of behavior. So how do we, as a people, as a young people, try and fix that as well, so that it doesn't become that Morara spoke about?
And before Chim comes in, I think you've raised a very good point. And I think it starts with us. Choices are very hard. They're difficult to make. Some choices you make, not everyone is gonna be happy. Yeah. But even we as citizens of this country, I think we need to self-introspect. Mali uko kwa nyumba yako, jioni, asubuhi, wherever you are, we need to ask ourselves. I feel like even as young people, we need to ask ourselves, what role am I playing as a young person? You know, you start little and then you build and build. Hata nyumba ukijenga unaanza na foundation, msingi, you know, before you get to the roof, little by little. And then somewhere, we're gonna meet somewhere with our leaders so that we can all now head to one direction. But if we put, I mean, yes, it's nice to hold our leaders accountable, and we should hold them accountable. But are we holding ourselves accountable? You know, as Irari, are you holding yourself accountable? You do say that example that you've given, there will be choices you will be needed to make in that small setting that you're in that will not benefit everyone. But in the long run, they're gonna benefit
sijui kama watu wa production keza waambia wakuwa wanafanya kazi from 9 am to 9 pm for 6 days in a week. Sijui kama watakubali. I'm sure so many of us, if that was the work environment for me, I would have a problem with it. But like, and works. But it works. Like, look at like kind of tech that China is building. It's like top of the hell, man. It's dope.
Yeah.
But like, so how do, as ourselves, when you tell Kenyans that is what should be, if someone came and said, if someone came up with a policy that actually that's how work should look like in Kenya, for example, for us to get what it is. And if the president can even decide that it's also going to be the work formula for my cabinet, for my, advisory committee, everyone, that is the formula. We start there. Do you think that would work?
I think somebody has to make the hard decision for us.
Yeah.
Because if we wait for us as individuals to, okay, we'll do what we can from where we are sitting, but someone has to make that decision. Guys, it's about time we need to move this way, right? It can actually, like Tony has said, it can now start from the cabinet. Waanze hapo juu. And then like China said, one company started and then the whole country embraced the entire thing. If it started somewhere and then itakuwa rahisi, to be really honest, but we can start with a smaller group and then now we can bring everybody in.
I tend to agree with what you're saying begrudgingly, because this conversation brings us back to benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah.
Because the unfortunate truth is we are the type of populace, whether or not you agree with it on the surface of it, if you introspect, you'll realize we're the type of populace that needs that push, that actually needs someone to check in and be like, okay, cool, now we are shaping up. It is a bitter truth.
And can we talk our way into development? Because like I remember when that whole conversation was brought in, when the president introduced that concept, watu wengine, everyone is like, ay, hapana, wewe hata sijui nini. So, but he was just, okay, in my view, I felt like he just was planted an idea, a concept, and he was like, okay, we can dream, it can happen in our lifetime. He said 2025 is where this should, the mark where it all happens. But when it happens, like, it left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths. Like, okay, it doesn't feel like it's possible. Is he... Si tukue labda watu wangeuliza singesema tukue Rwanda kwanza ama I don't know. So like, is it...
Tuanze
It's
karibu.
like he lives in a different...
It's possible, but for you to sell that to the average
world.
Kenyan, first things are... I can't speak for the average Kenyan, I'll speak for myself. As an average Kenyan, first thing I want to see is any member of cabinet who has even just the whiff. There's this saying I really like, Caesar's wife must be above reproach, right? Any cabinet minister that has even a whiff of impropriety, gone. Then you can start to tell me that action has taken place. Now we are moving forward. And I don't care if someone will say, well, it was just a rumor. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. Doesn't matter. You should have been a better custodian of your name, of your reputation. If there's even a whiff of impropriety, gone. Then, like I said, bring in the loudest haters from across the aisle, right? The loudest haters. Not all of them, he's the president for a reason. There is intelligence and wisdom that led him to that position, right?
Yes,
Whether or not you agree with that, it's just a fact of life. Now, using that same wisdom, that same intelligence, bring on board people who Kenyans will trust, will be able to check you, and then lead us forward.
Do you think we have such a person who Kenyans can trust?
If you listen to the opposition chatter, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to speak and name names.
Probably you shouldn't.
Probably shouldn't, yeah. But there's some guys who were at a funeral a couple of months ago, and they were very vocal in their criticism of the president.
Yeah.
Right? I would love to see the president again cross that aisle, reach out to one of these guys,
Sitting
especially the
down
most
with him.
vocal one, bring him back in and tell him, okay, cool, I've heard all of your criticism. You're now in charge of this ministry, right? Let's say minerals, because there is gold in Western, so it would still tie in. You're now in charge of that. Show me what you can do, right? You have a year, show me what you can do. I'd look at that and be like, oh, wow, okay, cool. Now I can also board the train, because now there's something in it for me. Because when we talk about Singapore, the unfortunate truth is most Kenyans hear that and they think That's Nairobi. That's Mombasa. That's Nakuru.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with where I'm from.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, thoughts.
Speaking of development, because you raised that, what is the one hard national choice that Kenya keeps postponing? From where I'm seated, I think sometimes we take our constitution for granted, to be quite honest. We have a constitution for a reason. It's there to guide the laws of this country. But we play with it so much because a lot of the the rights that are in that constitution are not respected in this country. And for us to get to a first world status, we need to start respecting our constitution. That for me would be the one hard choice that every now and then you're saying, oh, but the constitution says, and then tomorrow something happens and you're like, but the constitution says.
On a grassroots
the
level,
Constitution
try and tell a police officer, the constitution,
Constitution
enshrines
says,
my rights. You see how that
you
adds up. I'd say the most difficult thing that I think is the most glaring when we're looking at the Singapore question.
Yeah.
What was one of the first things he did? He made corruption a capital offense.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did.
I mean, Mr. President, if you're watching, make corruption a capital offense. And I mean, first-time offenders, the ones who are currently in, just get rid of them. See how the country now rallies around you. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Well, there are actually systems in Kenya that are supposed to, set that up. Like, for example, there's the EACC, there's all these other, systems that we have as a country, all these commissions, all these other government agencies that are tasked with handling like issues like corruption. But why do they appear like they're not doing a good job? What is it that is stopping them from executing what it is that they are doing?
Okay, to be really honest, we have ongoing corruption cases in the country. People
Very
have
many.
been taken in for these things, but we hear about it today, next month, and then
dropped.
6 months later, you're like, now by the way, there was this case. Where did this case go? So again, it still falls back to the system.
Yeah.
If you don't have a really right system, we'll always be going back to we are
The
in a
drawing board.
circle. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
always be in a circle. Because today I'm caught for corruption, assuming, the same money that I have is the same money I'll use to get my way out.
Yeah.
So we are still going back to
And the biggest
Yeah.
damage the failed system does is it continues to erode trust in the system. At the end of the day, the system is like currency. There has to be trust in it. I have to know I can use a Kenya shilling, 1,000 Kenya shillings to buy X, right? If I don't trust in that, then the currency is worthless. The same applies to the system. If I do not have any faith that the system will either treat me fairly or treat you and I fairly at the same time, then honestly, you
you're
might as well
human. You
just
choose
play.
what is efficient for you.
Exactly.
Jim, 2024 during the Gen Z, if I can call it, Gen Z uprisings, it appeared like we were making a shift as a country. Like we were trying to get to something. You are Gen Z, perhaps you can also chime in on this. It appeared like we were there's something that was like we were changing something in this country, like a new country was emerging where we wanted accountability, where we knew what it is that we wanted. We knew, it appeared like young people understood what good leadership looks like. But after that, like I can go by the elections that happened recently. A lot of young people didn't come out to vote.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of young people are also not coming out to look to get electoral, what do you call them? The things for voting. Just
The voters.
The
They're
voters
not
card.
registering the voters.
Yes,
anymore,
registering as voters, doing all these things. Where did that whole thing that was happening go to? What changed? Why does it seem like the fire died?
Okay,
Or like
so-
we are not moving the way I anticipated that we were going to move?
Two things can be true simultaneously. Number one, it was actually really, really brave for the president to exit the ivory temple, come down and be like, all right, cool, now talk to me. Right? And the fact that he made himself available to have that conversation exposes part of what went wrong with us. During the Mandamanos, it was labeled a Gen Z uprising,
Yeah.
of which made sense because it was like 90% Gen Z.
Yeah,
But
yeah, well,
the
young
10% millennials who came in helped to organize everything for whatever, whatever their...
Yeah, they were paying for cabs, buying for
but whatever even their motive was,
Yeah.
ultimately,
Yeah.
the greater good that we could see, the greater common denominator was, it was organized.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Organized enough for the president to be like, hey, now let's sit down, let's have a
Let's
conversation.
hear these young people.
Right?
Yeah.
That was the first missed opportunity. Well, I'd say the second missed opportunity. The first one being the Gen Z rejected the millennials. So now there's no guidance. So what you have is raw aggression, anger, whether legitimate. I'm not debating the legitimacy of that anger, that frustration, right? They are disenfranchised. But now there's no more guidance. And if there's no more guidance, all you have is a wheel that is now spinning in its place, right? So we start to see the wheel lose all of its momentum, right? From there, when you get called to the table, at the end of the day, everything in life, and this is something business taught me, everything in life is about negotiation. You will never get what you feel you're worth, right? But you will be able to get to the table. If you have the opportunity, sit at the table, represent your interests. You wanted... I love the example you used, Donald Trump. I love the way he negotiates. So he goes and tells you, I want 1,000. I want all of Greenland. And what do these guys go back and say? No. They go, they cry, they come back to the table and say, you know what? Okay, we won't give you Greenland, but we'll give you full access, military and all. We'll give you full. He asked for more than he knew he'd get, and he got something. Same thing the Gen Z should have done. The president of the country has come down to talk. Meet him.
There was a committee that was formed. I remember of about 100 people, and most of them were Gen Zs. Actually, it's been how many years now since 2024? Like
You
one
see,
and a half years later,
the
we've
Gen
not
Z cannot
had.
hold those guys accountable because the first thing that happened when that committee was formed was they were asked, "Who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you to speak for?" Bro, we asked you to come, like you were told, come to the table, let's have a conversation. You said no. And then you were the loudest voice in the back of the class. You understand? There's someone who stepped forward and was like, you know what? I'm willing to have that conversation with all the danger that comes. So now when this guy comes and sits down, when this lady comes and sits down, and you immediately strip of legitimacy through insults, shame, because we all saw this happening.
Yeah.
How you think that guy is going to be accountable to you? How is he accountable to you?
I remember there's a guy who hosted a space on X.
Yeah.
And hey man, that guy was a hammer.
Abuse. Abuse, bro.
Hey, he was a
Abuse, bro.
hammer. Yeah, for just saying, okay, I'll host the space then.
Yes.
Like if you want to talk, I'll host the space. So the guy was a hammer.
Hammered. And like I keep saying, you cannot have any progress if that's how you operate. You can't. Yeah.
So go in it with an open mind.
I'd say that. Yes.
Z.
I think the first mistake we did not have one leader. Like we did not have one voice. Of course, we knew what we wanted, sisi kama crowd, but we did not have that one person that we trusted. So when people were called upon to, okay, guys, let's come and talk. Whoever went there, whether they went for their personal gain, for whatever reason, when walienda, personally, I don't even know half of them. So I don't even know. That's the problem with Gen Zs. We don't know who, like, we are fighting for this thing.
Even the Gen Zs are wondering, who are these Gen Zs?
Exactly. We don't even know them. Like the elections that we had, for me to be elected as a youth rep, like 70% of the people who came to vote for me are not youths.
Wow.
Sadly.
But this ties back into trust in the system. Like, we're talking about trust.
Yeah.
The Gen Zs, they had legitimate concerns, including their own personal safety. There was a time when abductions was the order of the day. Like, if we're going to have a conversation, let's have it openly and honestly. There was a time when that was a real fear, right? But unfortunately, for you to make an omelette, few eggs will have to be cracked. You've complained about the system. You're going to have to be brave enough to not just complain when you're in the crowd, but to complain when you're alone, right? Then when you ask the question of the voters' cards, it still ties into that. If you listen to Gen Z speak, all of them essentially will tell you, I don't trust the voting process. But that's like, you cannot divorce yourself from the system and hope to change anything. Like, that's not how that works. That is not how that works. You have to immerse yourself in the system, actually say, I voted, document yourself voting, be there as they're tallying, as much as is legally allowed, be there as they're tallying the votes. And if there's anything fishy, be there documenting every step of the way. Then you can now say, you know what? We've played your game.
Yeah.
You've refused to amend the rules. Like, you're not even obeying the rules that are there. But we've played your game. Now we are going to play it a different way. But for you to just flip the table, like, bro, I'm a father with children. I'm unwilling to see the table just flipped because I have to worry about my children and I have to get back home to my children. You understand? So, I mean, you play the game, then afterwards, navigate what comes later.
Okay. Tracy, you were making a point.
Yes.
You could
I was
finish that.
saying, we're in Kikuyu, because that's where the elections were. My mom had to call her friends, shika anachaguliwa si mtoke, you know. Like the youths that want to hold me accountable for whatever I'm going to represent them for, they did not even show up. So if like I got the seat, sisemi nitapandisha vio, but you cannot come and just ask me, by the way, wahu, blah, 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 and you are not even there. I want to represent you. So can you, if I'm to sit on that seat, can you take the voters card? Can you show up so that when you're making these decisions, you'll feel a pinch. If something goes wrong, you'll be like, me by the last time I voted. So I'm feeling like I can...
And they can come to you personally and tell you, but they Tracy, I voted for you, but
yes,
you've not
but
delivered
you've done
on
1, 2, 3. You told us you'll do this, but now wewe ulienda huko, and now you feel like, you know, I'll answer them.
Sasa
You
umefika,
voted, I'll answer you. But now how do you come telling me, ulifanya na haukua? You understand? So I think that's the whole problem. Gen Zs, we are very vocal. In fact, we have a degree of being vocal. You hamwezi tutoa. But now you see, but how pale kwa the action bit that you guys need to take votes so that we can be able to make decisions. Wazazi wetu bado ndo watatokea time ya kuvote. And let me tell you, vile walipewa unga huko na soda na mkate, they will do the same mistakes.
Those sodas are gonna
so
come
if these
through.
youths, if these youths don't show up, they need... If they're gonna watch this, they need to show up. They need to make this hard decision. Chukua hiyo kura, amka 4, twende to vote, go back to work. So that when we are holding these people accountable, I feel like it's gonna work. It's a good starting point for all of us.
What will make them... They have shown up before. We saw it, isn't it? In 2024, they showed up. What do we need to do to make sure that they're always showing up? And not only just for, you know, in terms of, let's say, even voting or even elective leadership, just for things that matter. Even this whole first world dream, how do they show up so that we can all go there? What is this incentive we need to give so that they have shown up before? Why can we make them show up again and again and again?
The only incentive is hope. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the way the first world countries, especially Singapore, which we are using Singapore as an example because they were where we are, right? And within a generation, they were able to leap from being what Trump had colorful words for into a first world country, welcome to any table, making decisions on the world stage. Hope. That's the only thing. Because, I mean, there's no way I can force someone to get a voter's card. But if there is hope, this guy feels like, I actually believe that we can turn things around.
And
unfortunately, again, that falls back to the leaders.
And the system. Are we willing to sacrifice some short-term comfort for long-term capability as young people? How do you feel?
That's a very hard question,
Yeah.
Because in this entire conversation, we said we need madaktari wakae kwa hospitali. Engineers wafanye kazi yao. Policy makers, they do what they need to do. Public servants, they do what they're supposed to do. But now, nitatoka kwa hii comfort to work for this thing for the long run that I'm not even sure that it's gonna... Once again, I'll repeat what I said. Short-term pain, long-term gain. We have to make that hard decision. We need to move from this thing that we think is comfort to work for this bigger picture that you're looking for.
Am I hearing a yes? Because you're saying short-term pain.
Yes, me, I totally agree. We need to...
to sacrifice something.
If you really want to work or get to this place. Because anyway, who would mind having such a system, such a nice country where everything is working? So I think we are the ones to sacrifice for our kids and other generations to... Because other people sacrificed for where we are right now. So why not us? We sacrifice for them to come and also enjoy what they're going to find.
In our last episode, we had this conversation, and one of the guests, Joshua, mentioned that we have taken a very individualistic approach towards our lives, where if it's the middle class, you have your own estate, your own gated community, where you have your own supermarket, you have your own, you pay for your own water, you pay for your own security.
Chim calls it a bubble. We're living in a bubble.
Yes, living in a bubble. If Chima said it. So if that is the case, where everything is very individualistic, and I always feel like we don't have anything as a country that is a national thing that we all commit to, and it's a shared common national interest, where we say, this is who we are as a country. If I asked you, what are we as Kenyans? What is it that brings us together as a people to drive towards something? I feel like Kenya doesn't have that. Like, we don't have anything that it's a shared common interest. Maybe perhaps that's where we need to start. And if that's the case, how do we formulate something like that?
But
So
we do have certain characteristics that we boast about on social media. Like if you're on TikTok, you'll find whenever there's a tragedy, it is very easy for
People
a
come
celebrity
together.
to just call a few people together and they all pull resources, help out, right? Now, maybe
let's bring some context into that. That's something happened to a popular, I think he's a singer or something, and like he was having his own, marriage strike. It's common, it happens. And then there's some people who were running around to build the wife a house to get her out of that one. And I'm like, if Kenyans are willing to do this, they're willing to spend money to move someone out of someone's house and build them a house. What is this thing that they can't
again, we
commit
go
to
back to
better
selling hope,
leadership?
finding out how to speak to the Gen Z, right? In such a way that, honestly, when you were that age, one of the biggest things that were in your mind was about being cool. How do you make nation building cool?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speak their language.
Yeah.
How do we make it cool for you so that you can join the train that is we are talking about?
I think I'll use Shim's words. He had said somewhere, you don't talk at us. That's what you said.
Yeah.
Oh, in that now, fast forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come sit where we are sitting.
Yeah.
Know where this anger is coming from, the frustration is coming from. Then from that point, when we feel like we are having a consensus, then we can now, I think, start a conversation, bring it in. I feel like we need to kuja chini, come to our level, right? Like I've said, the example I gave about someone who doesn't have a job, ako frustrated, ako like, what are you telling me? Me, I studied, I had second class upper division, I can do very well in finance, but his system, anyway, okay, it's not working for me. So you need to come to where this guy is sitting, know the frustration that he has, and then now from there we can start this conversation. Yeah. It could be that we also, as youth, need to create our own employment. We don't have to wait to be employed. Of course, he's a finance guy, yeah? He could come up with a company, a consultancy, and something like that, So we need to have this conversation and make us, Gen Zs, understand, our youths understand that we don't have to say government, kila saa, government. No, we also have a part to play. I am a media person. I can start my own social media management company. Hiyo sio government imenipatia. So we need also as youths to do it. We don't have to wait for them.
Yeah.
We wacha tuanze tupatane mbele. Yeah.
Chime and Tracy, let's just bring this home as we wrap up. We're talking about what kind of a first world country that we are building and how does it benefit everyone. Your final thoughts. Let me hear your final thoughts.
First world country that we're building. Again, cycling back to how we started, the systems work.
Yeah.
Kenyans are innovative enough and industrious enough that if the systems work, you will be surprised just how much entrepreneurial spirit there is that will drive, it literally merges what the president's trying to push and will drive in that direction.
Yeah.
Systems work, everything else falls in line.
I love it. Tracy,
I'd say you can...
as a youth leader, as a young youth leader.
Yeah. You can succeed in a broken system, but up to a certain point. Yeah. So we have people to...
That's so lovely.
That's Sophie.
So we need people to take responsibility, and because if it will work for you up to some point, but entirely the system will fail, so all of us will suffer, right? So we need some people to take responsibility of this entire thing, and then the rest of us will follow. Yeah.
I totally agree. I know you can buy a Porsche, 9/11, but if there's
You
no
can't
roads,
drive it.
if there's no roads to-
Nakwambia muko na,
if if there are no roads to drive it in,
Hey,
then
Mahatma Gandhi is in this room today.
if there are no roads to drive it on, then it is worthless. So I do agree that if systems don't work, it can only take you far. It can. So if it was up to us for young people to just take up the mantle,
Yeah.
and I think the best way to do it, and I believe that you can actually talk your way into a developed nation, a first world country, because that's where it starts. You start by talking about it, figuring out what do we need to change, what kind of systems do we need, what kind of leadership do we need, and then like Dr. Chi, the doctor said at our last forum, brick by brick. He mentioned that this building was not built all at the same time. It was brick by brick until we had this whole hall that we are holding the forum on. So brick by brick, conversation by conversation, and I think at some point we will get there.
Yeah.
Those are my final thoughts. Babe.
Yeah. Wow, lovely. Those are very good insights. And I think that's a good place for us to wrap up this conversation for today. I agree with what has been said, but also from my perspective, talk is good, but it's not enough. Action is what matters. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. This is Youth Assembly Platform, where we think, debate, and build. Until next time, and from all of us here at DPAC, it's bye-bye.
Oh,
Oh, okay.